Ancient Rome was a society shaped by long continuity, gradual adaptation, and strong attachment to place. For most people, daily life unfolded within familiar surroundings, and the home formed the center of this experience. Roman homes were not uniform, but they followed patterns that reflected social structure, climate, available materials, and long-established custom. Whether modest or elaborate, the home was designed to support daily routines, family life, and practical needs rather than comfort in a modern sense. The setting of a Roman home depended greatly on location. In cities such as Rome itself, Pompeii, or Ostia, homes were built close together along narrow streets. Space was limited, and buildings rose vertically as much as horizontally. In rural areas, homes were more spread out, often connected to farmland and agricultural work. Despite these differences, the basic expectations of domestic life remained similar. The home was a place of shelter, storage, routine, and social interaction, shaped by habit rather than constant innovation. Roman society was layered, and housing reflected these layers clearly. Wealthy families lived in townhouses known as domus, while many ordinary people lived in apartment buildings called insulae. These different forms of housing existed side by side within cities, creating neighborhoods of mixed status. Yet even within these contrasts, there were shared assumptions about how a home functioned and what it provided. All homes were shaped by the Mediterranean climate, encouraging certain architectural choices such as open spaces, courtyards, and thick walls. The Roman understanding of home was closely tied to ideas of order and continuity. The household was not simply a physical structure, but a social unit that included family members, dependents, and sometimes enslaved individuals. Daily life revolved around maintaining this unit. The home provided a stable setting where routines could repeat reliably from day to day, supporting a sense of predictability even within a large and complex society. Urban Roman homes were usually built from stone, brick, or concrete, materials that offered durability and protection from heat. Roofs were tiled rather than thatched, and walls were often plastered. Streets were busy and noisy, so homes were designed to turn inward. Openings to the street were limited, while interior spaces provided light and air through courtyards rather than windows. This inward focus shaped how people experienced domestic space, emphasizing enclosure and separation from public life. In rural settings, homes were often simpler in design but followed similar principles. Farmhouses combined living areas with storage and workspaces. These homes were closely connected to the land around them, with daily life shaped by agricultural rhythms. Even so, the basic Roman ideas of domestic order, routine, and shared space remained present. The home served as a stable base from which work and social life extended outward. Roman homes were not static structures. They changed gradually over time as families grew, fortunes shifted, or repairs became necessary. Rooms were added, walls repainted, floors resurfaced. These changes were made within established patterns rather than through complete redesign. Familiar layouts were maintained, reinforcing continuity across generations. Children grew up in homes that closely resembled those of their parents and grandparents, both in form and function. Climate played a quiet but important role in shaping Roman domestic life. Hot summers encouraged shaded spaces and open courtyards, while cooler seasons required thicker walls and controlled airflow. Homes were designed to moderate temperature naturally, using orientation, materials, and layout rather than mechanical systems. These features shaped daily movement within the house, guiding where people spent their time at different hours. Water availability also influenced domestic settings. In cities, some homes had access to piped water through aqueducts, while others relied on shared fountains. This affected where water was stored and how it was used. Baths, cooking, and cleaning were organized around these sources. In rural homes, wells or cisterns provided water, requiring regular maintenance and careful use. These arrangements shaped daily routines without drawing constant attention. The Roman concept of privacy differed from modern expectations. Homes were busy places, with multiple people moving through shared spaces. Family members, visitors, clients, and workers might all be present at different times. Rather than seeking isolation, Roman domestic life emphasized order within shared environments. Space was used flexibly, and activities overlapped without strict separation. Religious practice was also part of the domestic setting. Small household shrines were common, placed within living spaces rather than separate rooms. These shrines were part of the background of daily life, reinforcing continuity and tradition. Their presence shaped how space was arranged and used, integrating belief into routine rather than setting it apart. Time within the Roman home was experienced through repetition rather than measurement. Daily activities followed familiar sequences, guided by daylight, habit, and social expectation. The home provided the setting in which these patterns could unfold reliably. Even as individuals moved in and out for work or social obligations, the domestic environment remained constant. Despite differences in wealth and location, Roman homes shared a common purpose. They supported daily life through shelter, organization, and routine. They were not designed to impress through comfort alone, but to function steadily over long periods. Within their walls, Roman families lived in ways shaped by tradition, environment, and shared understanding. In this context, the typical Roman home can be understood not as a single design, but as a set of familiar principles applied in different circumstances. It was a place of continuity rather than change, shaped by long experience and quiet adaptation. Daily life unfolded within these spaces at a measured pace, grounded in routine and familiarity, forming the foundation of Roman domestic existence. Daily rhythms within an ancient Roman home followed patterns that were steady, familiar, and shaped by long-established custom. The day unfolded gradually, guided by daylight rather than strict schedules. Most households began to stir shortly after sunrise, when light entered courtyards and interior spaces. Morning was not marked by urgency, but by a quiet transition from rest to activity, as household members prepared themselves and the home for the day ahead. Sleep typically ended early, particularly in urban environments where noise from the street began at dawn. Vendors, carts, and footsteps created a low background presence that signaled the start of daily movement. Within the home, people rose from simple sleeping arrangements and folded away bedding to free space for daytime use. Rooms were quickly transformed from sleeping areas into places for work, conversation, or preparation. Morning routines varied according to status and household size, but many actions were shared across social levels. Washing took place using basins of water drawn from stored supplies or nearby sources. This was a brief and practical activity rather than an extended ritual. Clothing was put on carefully, often with assistance in larger households. These actions were repeated daily, forming habits that required little attention. The early part of the day was often reserved for necessary household tasks. Floors were swept, surfaces wiped, and fires tended where cooking or heating was required. Food preparation for later meals might begin early, especially in homes where ingredients needed soaking or slow cooking. These tasks were not rushed. They were carried out in familiar order, allowing multiple activities to occur at once without confusion. For many Romans, the morning was also a time for work beyond the home. Adult men often left for business, trade, or administrative duties, while others worked nearby in workshops or markets. These departures followed predictable patterns, allowing the household to adjust its internal rhythm accordingly. Women, children, and dependents often remained within or near the home, continuing domestic tasks or home-based work. In wealthier households, mornings could include receiving visitors or dependents. This activity followed established custom and occurred within specific areas of the home. The presence of visitors was expected and integrated into daily routine. Household members adjusted their movement and tasks around these interactions without disruption. The home functioned as both private space and social setting, shifting smoothly between roles. As the morning progressed, activity settled into a steady flow. Some household members engaged in craft work, writing, teaching children, or overseeing supplies. Others moved between rooms, courtyards, and storage areas as needed. There was no sharp division between tasks. Activities overlapped naturally, guided by habit and familiarity with the space. Midday brought a noticeable pause. The heat of the day encouraged rest, particularly in warmer seasons. This pause was not universal but widely observed. Work slowed or stopped, and people sought shaded areas within the home. Courtyards, covered walkways, and interior rooms offered relief. This period allowed for rest, quiet conversation, or light food without formal structure. Meals during the day were modest and flexible. A light midday meal might be eaten alone or shared, depending on circumstance. There was no strict requirement for all household members to gather at the same time. Eating fitted around work and rest rather than dictating the day's structure. Food was consumed calmly, often standing or seated casually, without ceremony. Afternoon activity resumed gradually. As the heat lessened, work continued both inside and outside the home. Household members returned from external duties at different times, reintegrating into domestic life without announcement. Tasks such as checking supplies, repairing items, or preparing for the evening were carried out steadily. Children's daily rhythms mirrored those of adults. Younger children remained close to caregivers, observing and assisting where possible. Older children learned skills through repetition, participating in tasks appropriate to their age. Formal education, where it existed, followed flexible schedules. Learning was woven into daily life rather than set apart. The late afternoon marked another gentle shift. Light changed within the home, altering how spaces were used. Lamps were prepared as daylight faded. Activity slowed and attention turned toward evening arrangements. Food preparation increased as the main meal of the day approached. These changes were anticipated and required little instruction. Evening was a time of gathering, though not necessarily of silence or stillness. Household members came together in shared spaces, eating, talking, or continuing light tasks. The evening meal was more substantial than earlier food and often shared among those present. This meal did not always include every member, but it served as a focal point within the home. After eating, activity became quieter. Some people rested, others engaged in conversation, reading, or simple crafts. The atmosphere was calm and familiar. Lamps provided limited light, encouraging stillness rather than movement. The home gradually settled, preparing for rest. Nighttime routines were simple, bedding was brought out again, and sleeping spaces were arranged. There was little ceremony in this transition. Sleep followed naturally as light diminished and activity ceased. Noise from the street continued in urban areas, forming a background presence rather than a disturbance. Throughout the day, time was experienced through sequence rather than measurement. Actions followed one another in familiar order, creating a rhythm that repeated daily. The home supported this rhythm by providing stable spaces for each activity. Movement within the house followed known paths, and tasks were performed in expected places. Seasonal change adjusted these rhythms without altering their structure. Longer days extended activity, while shorter days compressed it. Heat and cold shifted patterns of rest and movement. These changes were gradual and expected, absorbed into routine without difficulty. In this way, daily life within a Roman home flowed steadily from morning to night. Routine shaped experience more than novelty. Each day resembled the one before, with small variations that did not disrupt the overall pattern. Within these rhythms, the home provided continuity, allowing Roman domestic life to proceed at a measured, unhurried pace. Homes in ancient Rome were shaped by practicality, climate, and long-standing custom, rather than by a single standard design. What a typical home was like depended greatly on wealth, location, and social position, yet certain features appeared again and again. Roman domestic interiors were designed to support daily routines, shared living, and gradual movement through space, creating environments that felt familiar to their inhabitants even as they varied in detail. In cities, many people lived in apartment buildings, known as insulae. These structures were built of brick and concrete, rising several stories high. Individual living spaces within them were often small, sometimes consisting of a single room. Families adapted by using space flexibly. One area might serve for sleeping at night, eating during the day, and storage at all times. Furniture was limited and movable, allowing rooms to change function as needed. These homes were compact, but they supported daily life through familiarity and routine rather than comfort. Wealthier Romans lived in houses known as domus. These were inward-facing homes designed to separate domestic life from the busy street outside. From the street, a domus often appeared plain, with a solid wall and a single doorway. Inside, however, space opened gradually. The entrance led into an atrium, a central hall that formed the heart of the home. This space was open to the sky, allowing light and rainwater to enter through an opening in the roof. Water collected in a shallow basin below, adding to the sense of order and balance within the space. Rooms in a domus were arranged around this central area. Bedrooms were small and used mainly for sleeping. They contained little furniture beyond beds and storage chests. Walls were often decorated with painted designs, using color and pattern to add interest without altering structure. Floors might be paved with stone or decorated with mosaics, though even simpler homes paid attention to durability rather than ornament. Beyond the atrium, many houses included an inner courtyard or garden. This space provided light, air, and a quiet retreat from the street. Plants, fountains, and open walkways created a calm environment that supported rest and reflection. Daily movement through the home often passed through this area, making it a constant presence rather than a destination. The garden helped regulate temperature and offered a sense of connection to nature within dense urban settings. Cooking areas varied widely. In smaller homes and apartments, cooking was done on simple hearths or portable stoves. Smoke was managed through open doorways or small vents. In larger houses, kitchens were separate rooms, though still modest in size. Food preparation required careful attention to fire and ventilation. These spaces were functional rather than comfortable, designed to support routine meal preparation rather than extended activity. Water access influenced interior arrangement. Some homes had private access to running water, allowing for small basins or fountains within the house. Others relied on stored water brought in from public fountains. Storage jars and containers were placed throughout the home, shaping where washing, cooking, and cleaning occurred. These arrangements were stable and familiar, integrated into daily movement through the house. Lighting shaped how interiors were used. Daylight entered through courtyards, doorways, and limited windows. As a result, many rooms remained dim, especially those farther from open spaces. At night, oil lamps provided light, but their reach was limited. This encouraged stillness and quiet activity after sunset. Interiors were arranged to make the most of available light, guiding where people gathered at different times of day. Heating was managed through thick walls, controlled openings, and, in some homes, small braziers. There was no system for evenly heating an entire house. Instead, warmth was concentrated where people gathered. This encouraged shared presence and reduced movement during colder periods. Over time, inhabitants learned which rooms were most comfortable at different seasons and adjusted their habits accordingly. Storage played an important role in Roman homes. Food, clothing, tools, and household goods were kept in jars, chests, and built-in niches. These storage spaces were placed where they could be accessed easily without disrupting daily movement. Organization relied on habit rather than labeling or strict order. Family members knew where items belonged through repeated use. Privacy within Roman homes was limited by modern standards. Many activities occurred in shared spaces, and movement was visible. Rather than seeking isolation, Romans managed privacy through timing and custom. Certain rooms were used at particular times, and social expectations guided behavior. This approach allowed many people to share space without constant conflict. Decoration was common but purposeful. Wall paintings, floor patterns, and household objects reflected taste, status, and tradition. These elements did not change frequently. They formed part of the home's identity, remaining in place for years or generations. Decoration reinforced continuity, reminding inhabitants of family history and shared values. In insulae, conditions were simpler. Upper floors often lacked running water and were more exposed to heat and cold. Lower floors were more desirable, offering easier access and greater stability. Despite these differences, families adapted their living conditions through routine. Daily life proceeded through familiar actions, making even limited spaces feel settled over time. Outdoor space, when available, extended the home. Balconies, courtyards, or shared areas provided places for storage, washing, or quiet activity. These spaces were used flexibly, depending on weather and need. Even without private outdoor areas, Roman homes maintained a sense of enclosure and order through interior design. The materials used in Roman homes were chosen for durability. Stone, brick, plaster, and tile allowed structures to last for generations with regular maintenance. Repairs were made gradually, often without altering layout. Walls were repainted, floors resurfaced, and roofs maintained. These actions preserved familiarity while allowing the home to age steadily. Children grew up knowing every corner of their home. They learned where light fell, where water was kept, and where quiet was expected. This intimate knowledge supported smooth daily movement and reinforced a sense of belonging. The home was not a backdrop, but an active participant in daily life. In this way, Roman homes provided stable environments shaped by habit, material, and climate. Whether modest or elaborate, they supported daily routines through familiarity and repetition. Interiors were not designed for change, but for endurance. Within these spaces, Roman domestic life unfolded steadily, grounded in shared use, practical arrangement, and long-established patterns of living. Work in ancient Rome was closely connected to the home, shaping how domestic spaces were used and how families organized their days. For many Romans, the boundary between household and workplace was flexible rather than fixed. The home was not only a place of rest, but also a base for economic activity, supervision, and preparation. Daily labor unfolded alongside domestic routines, creating an environment where work and home life were interwoven rather than separate. In urban settings, many trades were conducted either within the home or immediately outside it. Craftspeople such as cobblers, tailors, metalworkers, and potters often lived in the same building where they worked. In apartment buildings, the ground floors frequently housed workshops or shops, while families lived in rooms above or behind these spaces. This arrangement allowed work to begin early and continue steadily throughout the day, without the need for long travel. Sounds of tools, voices, and movement became part of the home's daily atmosphere. For households involved in trade, workspaces were simple and functional. Tools were stored within reach, materials were kept close at hand, and finished goods were displayed near entrances where customers could see them. These areas were not set apart from domestic life by walls or corridors. Children and other household members observed and assisted, learning skills through repetition and presence. Work became a shared activity, understood through familiarity rather than formal instruction. Many Romans earned their living outside the home, but still depended on it as a central point of organization. Men engaged in administration, commerce, or public service left the house in the morning and returned later in the day. Their departure and return shaped household rhythm, influencing meal preparation and shared time. Even when work occurred elsewhere, its effects were felt within the home through schedules, conversation, and planning. Women's work was often rooted within the household, though it varied by status and circumstance. Managing supplies, overseeing food preparation, producing textiles, and supervising dependents required steady attention. In wealthier households, women coordinated the work of others, ensuring that tasks were completed in proper order. In more modest homes, women combined domestic responsibilities with income-generating activities such as spinning, weaving, or selling goods. These efforts supported household stability and were integral to daily life. Enslaved individuals played a significant role in Roman domestic and economic activity. In larger households, enslaved workers performed a wide range of tasks, from cooking and cleaning to skilled trades and business management. Their work took place within the same domestic spaces as family life, shaping the home's daily rhythm. Tasks were assigned according to ability and experience, and routines were established through repetition. This labor supported the household's functioning without drawing constant attention. Children's involvement in work was gradual and informal. From an early age, they assisted with small tasks, observing adult labor and imitating it over time. Boys and girls learned skills appropriate to their household's needs, whether domestic management, craft work, or trade. Education occurred alongside work rather than replacing it. The home served as both living space and training ground, reinforcing continuity across generations. Rural households followed similar principles, though work was more directly tied to agriculture. Farmhouses combined living areas with storage for tools, produce, and animals. Daily tasks included tending fields, caring for livestock, and maintaining equipment. These activities were coordinated from the home, which functioned as the center of planning and rest. Even when work occurred outdoors, the household remained the point of return and preparation. Seasonal change influenced work patterns without altering their structure. Certain tasks required more effort at specific times of year, while others slowed. Households adapted by adjusting routines, reallocating labor, and modifying daily schedules. These changes were expected and absorbed smoothly into domestic life. Work remained steady, guided by habit rather than urgency. The pace of work within Roman homes was measured. Tasks were performed methodically, allowing for pauses and overlap. There was no expectation of constant activity. Periods of focused labor alternated with quieter moments, such as supervision, conversation, or preparation. This rhythm supported endurance over long periods, fitting the needs of both household and occupation. Tools and materials were maintained carefully. Repair was preferred over replacement, and knowledge of maintenance was widely shared. Broken items were fixed within the household whenever possible. This approach reduced dependence on outside resources and reinforced self-sufficiency. Workspaces reflected this attitude, containing well-used tools arranged through habit rather than design. Social interaction often occurred alongside work. Customers, suppliers, and visitors entered the home or workshop as part of daily routine. These encounters were expected and managed without disruption. The home's layout supported this flow, allowing certain areas to be more public while others remained reserved for family use. Movement between these spaces followed established custom. Even in wealthier households where work was less visible, economic activity remained connected to domestic life. Estate management, correspondence, and planning took place within the home. Decisions affecting work were discussed among household members, reinforcing the family's role as an economic unit. The home provided the setting for these activities, supporting continuity and order. Work influenced how space was used throughout the day. Certain rooms became active at particular times, while others remained quiet. Courtyards and open areas accommodated tasks requiring light or ventilation. Storage spaces were accessed regularly, shaping movement patterns. Over time, These uses became fixed through repetition, making the home feel ordered and familiar. The integration of work and home life encouraged awareness among household members. People adjusted their behavior to accommodate ongoing tasks, maintaining a calm environment. Noise levels, movement, and timing were managed through custom rather than rule. This cooperation allowed many activities to occur simultaneously without conflict. Through these arrangements, work became an accepted and steady presence within the Roman home. It did not dominate domestic life, but existed alongside it, shaping routines and relationships quietly. The home functioned as a place of preparation, activity, and return, supporting labor through familiarity and shared understanding. In this way, Roman domestic spaces sustained economic life at a measured pace, allowing work to proceed within the steady flow of daily routine. Food within an ancient Roman home was shaped by habit, availability, and long-established custom. Meals were not designed for variety or display, but for regular nourishment and steady routine. What people ate depended on social position, location, and season, yet certain patterns were widely shared. Food preparation, storage, and consumption were integrated into daily domestic life, forming a quiet structure around which the household moved. Grain formed the foundation of the Roman diet. Bread was the most common food in most homes, eaten daily and often at every meal. In wealthier households, bread was made from finely milled wheat, while more modest homes relied on coarser grain. Flour was either purchased or ground locally, then baked at home or in communal ovens. Bread was valued for its reliability, ease of storage, and ability to accompany other foods without preparation. Alongside bread, porridge, and simple grain dishes were common, especially in the morning or at midday. These meals required little effort and could be prepared quickly. They were eaten warm or cold, depending on circumstance, and often consumed individually rather than as a shared event. Eating was practical rather than ceremonial, fitted around work and rest rather than defining the day. Vegetables played an important role in daily meals. Common foods included beans, lentils, onions, leeks, cabbage, and greens. These were grown in gardens, purchased in markets, or stored when possible. Vegetables were cooked simply, often boiled or stewed and seasoned lightly. Their preparation required patience rather than skill, and recipes were guided by habit rather than written instruction. Fruit was eaten when available, both fresh and dried. Apples, figs, grapes, and olives were common in many regions. Fruit might be eaten on its own or combined with other foods. Drying allowed for longer storage, making fruit available beyond harvest seasons. These foods added variation without altering the basic structure of meals. Meat was present, but not central for most households. When eaten, it was usually consumed in small portions and combined with other ingredients. Pork was the most common meat, followed by poultry and, less frequently, beef or lamb. Meat consumption varied by income and region. In many homes, meat appeared only occasionally, often preserved through salting or drying to extend its use. Fish and seafood were important in coastal areas and cities with good access to markets. Fresh fish was consumed when available, while preserved fish products extended availability inland. These foods were valued for their ability to keep and for their strong flavor, which allowed small amounts to be used effectively. Fish sauces and preserved products were used as seasonings, shaping taste without requiring large quantities. Dairy products were less prominent than in later European diets, but still present. Cheese was the most common, produced in various forms and stored for long periods. Milk was consumed fresh, where available, but was less stable. These foods supplemented meals quietly, fitting into routine rather than standing out. Cooking took place within the home using simple equipment. Small hearths, braziers, or portable stoves provided heat. Pots and pans were made of clay, bronze, or iron. Cooking required attention and experience, as temperature control was achieved through practice rather than measurement. Meals were prepared steadily, often alongside other tasks, without strict timing. Food preparation areas were functional rather than comfortable. Kitchens, where present, were small and used only as needed. In simpler homes, cooking occurred wherever space allowed. Smoke and heat were managed through open doorways, courtyards, or vents. These conditions shaped how long cooking tasks lasted and where they occurred within the house. Water was essential to food preparation and required careful management. In homes with access to running water, basins and fountains supported washing and cooking. Other households relied on stored water carried from public sources. This influenced how often cooking occurred and how food was cleaned. Water use followed routine patterns learned through repetition. Meals were eaten informally. People sat, stood, or reclined depending on custom, space, and status. In modest homes, eating was simple and direct, with little furniture. Food was shared from common dishes and utensils were minimal. Cleanliness was maintained within practical limits, guided by habit rather than strict rule. The main meal of the day often occurred in the late afternoon or evening. This meal was more substantial and more likely to be shared. It marked a natural slowing of activity rather than a formal gathering. Conversation might occur, but eating remained calm and unhurried. Not all household members were always present at the same time, and meals adjusted to schedules without difficulty. Food storage was a constant concern. Grains, oil, wine, and preserved foods were kept in jars, amphorae, or chests. Storage areas were placed where temperature and moisture were stable. Households learned through experience how long foods would keep and when they should be used. This knowledge shaped meal planning without written records. Seasonal change influenced food availability gradually. Fresh produce appeared and disappeared with the year, while preserved foods filled the gaps. These shifts were expected and accepted. Diet adjusted without disruption, guided by habit rather than preference. Seasonal variation added subtle change without altering routine. Children learned about food through observation and participation. They assisted with preparation, carried supplies, and ate alongside adults. There was little separation between children's food and adult food. Taste developed through familiarity, and preferences were shaped by repetition rather than choice. Religious and cultural practices influenced eating habits in quiet ways. Certain foods were associated with particular days or observances, but these practices were integrated smoothly into routine. They did not require elaborate preparation or interruption of daily life. Food continued to serve nourishment first, meaning second. Drinks accompanied meals according to availability. Water, diluted wine, and simple beverages were common. Wine was often mixed with water and consumed in moderation as part of daily life. Drinking followed custom rather than indulgence, fitting naturally into meals without emphasis. The preparation and consumption of food reinforced household rhythm. Meals provided pauses within the day, moments of nourishment that supported continued activity. They did not dominate attention or require ceremony. Instead, they marked time gently, aligning domestic life with natural cycles of work and rest. Through these steady practices, food sustained Roman households quietly and reliably. Meals reflected environment, habit, and social structure without seeking variety or display. Preparation, eating, and storage followed patterns learned through daily repetition. In this consistency, food played its role as a stable foundation of domestic life, supporting the Roman home through routine rather than change. Social life within an ancient Roman home was shaped by closeness, shared routine, and clear expectations about roles and relationships. The household was not limited to parents and children, but often included extended family members, dependents, and enslaved individuals. All of these people lived within the same domestic space, interacting daily in ways that were familiar and structured by long-standing custom. The home functioned as a social unit as much as a physical one. providing order through repetition rather than formal rules. Family formed the core of Roman domestic life. Parents, children, and relatives shared space, meals, and daily routines. Authority within the family was understood and rarely questioned in daily interaction. Guidance occurred through example and habit rather than constant instruction. Children learned expected behavior by observing adults and by participating in household life from an early age. Social roles were reinforced through daily practice, making them feel natural rather than imposed. Extended family relationships were common and important. Grandparents, unmarried relatives, or other kin might live within the same home or nearby. These arrangements provided continuity across generations. Older family members contributed knowledge, memory, and supervision, while younger members provided assistance and energy. This close contact allowed customs and expectations to pass smoothly from one generation to the next without formal teaching. Enslaved individuals formed a visible part of many Roman households, particularly among wealthier families. They lived and worked within the same spaces as free family members, performing tasks that supported daily life. Their presence shaped social interaction within the home, creating a structured environment where duties were clearly understood. Daily contact between enslaved workers and family members was routine, governed by custom and familiarity rather than constant oversight. Social interaction within the home followed predictable patterns. Conversation occurred alongside work, meals, and rest. Topics were practical and immediate, focused on daily needs, schedules, and shared concerns. Storytelling and extended discussion existed, but were usually brief and repetitive. The value lay in familiarity rather than novelty. Through repeated conversation, shared understanding developed quietly over time. The Roman home was also a place of interaction with people beyond the family. Visitors, such as clients, friends, and neighbors, entered the household regularly, especially in urban settings. These visits followed established customs and took place in specific areas of the home. The presence of outsiders was expected and managed without disruption. Household members adjusted their movement and behavior according to these routines, maintaining order through habit. Children's social development occurred almost entirely within this domestic and neighborhood environment. They played near the home, accompanied adults, and observed interactions between household members and visitors. Through this exposure, they learned appropriate behavior, speech, and posture. Correction, when necessary, was immediate and practical, reinforcing social norms through consistency rather than intensity. Gender influenced social roles within the household, though daily practice often required flexibility. Men, women, and children all contributed to household life in ways shaped by circumstance. Social interaction reflected these roles without rigid separation. Cooperation was valued, and individuals adjusted their behavior to support household stability. This adaptability allowed the family to function smoothly despite differences in age, status, or responsibility. Community life extended naturally from the household. Neighbors lived close by, especially in cities, and contact was frequent. Shared walls, streets, and courtyards encouraged regular interaction. These encounters were brief and practical, involving greetings, exchanges of information, or small acts of assistance. Over time, familiarity created informal networks of support that complemented family relationships. Religious practice within the home reinforced social cohesion. Household shrines were common, and simple rituals were observed regularly. These practices were shared by those living in the home, reinforcing a sense of unity and continuity. Participation did not require explanation or emphasis. Ritual formed part of daily life, strengthening bonds through shared repetition. Care within the household was ongoing and expected. When illness or weakness occurred, family members and dependents adjusted routines to provide assistance. Tasks were redistributed quietly, and daily life continued with minor modification. This approach reflected the understanding that support was a natural part of shared living. Care was practical and integrated rather than separate or ceremonial. Social discipline within the home relied on consistency. Expectations were clear because they were repeated daily. Behavior was guided through routine rather than frequent correction. Individuals learned what was acceptable by observing responses and adjusting accordingly. This method supported stability and reduced conflict, as roles and boundaries were widely understood. Privacy within Roman domestic life was limited. Many activities occurred in shared spaces, and individual behavior was visible. Rather than seeking isolation, Romans managed privacy through timing and convention. Certain actions took place at particular times or in specific areas. This approach allowed many people to coexist within limited space without tension. Meals played an important social role. Even when eaten informally, they provided moments of shared presence. Conversation during meals reinforced relationships and allowed for coordination of plans. These interactions were calm and unhurried, fitting naturally into the rhythm of the day. Meals did not require all household members to be present to serve this function. Festivals and special days introduced variation without disruption. On these occasions, households might receive additional visitors or spend more time together. These events followed familiar patterns and ended without altering daily routine. Afterward, normal life resumed smoothly, supported by established habits. Respect and reputation mattered within Roman social life. Behavior within the home reflected on the household as a whole. This awareness encouraged self-control and consideration. Social conduct was shaped by the understanding that actions were observed and remembered within both family and community contexts. Through these patterns, social life within the Roman home remained steady and interconnected. Relationships were maintained through daily presence, shared responsibility, and routine interaction. Family, dependents, and visitors formed a continuous social environment governed by habit rather than instruction. In this setting, social life unfolded quietly, shaped by familiarity, repetition, and the enduring structure of domestic life. Leisure within an ancient Roman home was quiet, habitual, and closely woven into the fabric of daily life. It was not understood as a separate category of time set aside for entertainment, but as a natural slowing of activity when work allowed. Moments of rest emerged between tasks, in the early afternoon, in the evening, or during pauses dictated by heat or fatigue. These intervals were familiar and unremarkable, providing balance rather than escape. Evenings offered the clearest opportunity for leisure within the home. As daylight softened and outdoor activity declined, household members gathered in shared spaces. Lamps were lit carefully and movement slowed. Tasks that required strength or sustained attention were set aside in favor of quieter occupations. This transition occurred gradually, guided by light and habit rather than instruction. The home settled into a calmer rhythm without formal signal. Conversation was one of the most common forms of leisure. Talk took place while reclining, eating, or engaging in small tasks. Topics were practical and familiar, often revisiting events of the day or matters already discussed many times before. Stories were repeated, details refined through retelling rather than novelty. The comfort of recognition mattered more than information. Through this repetition, shared memory was reinforced quietly. Reading and writing formed part of leisure for some households, particularly among those with education and access to texts. Scrolls were read aloud or quietly, often in short intervals, rather than extended sessions. Reading required light and concentration, so it followed the rhythms of the day closely. Writing, when it occurred, was practical rather than expressive, involving letters, accounts, or notes. These activities fitted easily into domestic routines without altering them. Music played a modest role in Roman domestic leisure. Simple instruments such as flutes or stringed instruments were used within the home, though not constantly. Singing was more common, often informal and unaccompanied. Familiar melodies were repeated rather than performed. Music accompanied gatherings or quiet moments, blending into the household atmosphere rather than commanding attention. Games and play were present, especially among children, but also among adults during relaxed moments. These games required little equipment and were easily paused. Board games, dice, or simple contests provided brief diversion without intensity. The purpose was shared presence rather than competition. Rules were familiar, and outcomes were accepted without emphasis, allowing play to remain calm and contained. Children's leisure was closely integrated with adult activity. Play occurred near workspaces or shared rooms, allowing supervision without interruption. Toys were simple and few, encouraging imagination and repetition. Children learned to occupy themselves quietly when required, adapting their behavior to the household environment. Through this integration, leisure became a means of learning patience and awareness. Observation formed another quiet pastime. Romans were attentive to their surroundings, noticing changes in light, temperature, and sound within the home. Watching the movement of shadows across walls or listening to distant street noise required no effort. These moments of stillness were accepted as part of daily life, offering rest without formal activity. Religious habits shaped leisure subtly. Household rituals, offerings, or moments of reflection occurred regularly and calmly. These practices did not interrupt the day but fitted within it, often in the morning or evening. Participation was brief and familiar, reinforcing continuity rather than demanding focus. Religious leisure blended reflection with routine. The afternoon rest period, particularly in warmer regions, offered another form of leisure. During the hottest part of the day, activity slowed. People reclined, rested, or engaged in quiet conversation. This pause was practical rather than indulgent, allowing energy to be conserved. It was understood and accepted, forming part of the natural rhythm of the home. Outdoor leisure extended domestic life when space allowed. Courtyards, gardens, and shaded walkways provided areas for sitting, walking, or quiet activity. These spaces were used flexibly, depending on weather and need. Being outdoors did not mark a break from domestic life, but an extension of it. Household members remained within the familiar environment of the home. Social visits formed part of leisure, but followed established custom. Friends or relatives might call in the evening or during quieter hours. These visits were brief and predictable, occurring within designated areas of the home. Conversation followed familiar patterns, and hospitality was offered without display. Visits reinforced social bonds without altering routine. Silence was a common and accepted presence within Roman homes. Periods of quiet required no explanation. People rested, observed, or simply remained still. This silence supported recovery from daily effort and prepared the household for sleep. The absence of constant activity was not considered idle but necessary. Leisure was shaped by awareness of others sharing the space. Noise was moderated, movement considered, and activities chosen to suit the household as a whole. This encouraged cooperation and restraint. Individuals adjusted their behavior to maintain harmony, reinforcing social order through habit rather than rule. Seasonal change influenced leisure gently. Longer days allowed for extended evening activity, while shorter days encouraged earlier rest. Heat shaped the timing of pauses, and cooler weather concentrated activity indoors. These changes were gradual and expected, requiring little adjustment. Leisure adapted naturally to conditions without altering its character. Leisure did not aim to distract or stimulate. It supported rest, familiarity, and shared presence. Enjoyment arose from repetition, competence, and calm rather than novelty. Activities were chosen for their ease and fit within domestic life, not for their ability to entertain. Over time, leisure habits became part of household identity. Certain activities were associated with particular times of day or members of the household. These patterns repeated quietly, marking time without announcement. Through repetition, leisure reinforced continuity, linking one day to the next. In this way, leisure within an ancient Roman home remained modest, integrated, and steady. It did not stand apart from daily life, but softened it, providing balance through quiet activity and rest. Within these familiar habits, the household found rhythm and ease, allowing domestic life to proceed without strain or interruption. Change within the ancient Roman home occurred slowly, shaped by long continuity rather than sudden transformation. Although Roman society extended across centuries and regions, domestic life remained grounded in familiar patterns that endured across generations. Homes were adapted, repaired, and adjusted, but their fundamental purpose and structure remained stable. Daily routines, shared expectations, and established layouts provided continuity even as circumstances shifted around them. One of the most consistent features of Roman domestic life was the persistence of household structure. The home continued to function as a central unit of living, work, and social interaction. Even as families grew, divided, or changed in status, the basic organization of domestic space remained recognizable. Rooms retained their functions, courtyards continued to provide light and air, and storage areas remained integral to daily life. Change occurred through addition and refinement rather than replacement. Architectural development reflected this gradual process. Building techniques improved over time, allowing for stronger walls, better flooring, and more durable roofs. These improvements were incorporated into existing designs rather than replacing them. Homes were reinforced, extended, or redecorated as needed, preserving familiar layouts. In this way, a house could evolve over decades while remaining fundamentally the same space to those who lived within it. Decorative styles changed slowly, influenced by fashion, region, and availability of materials. Wall paintings were refreshed, mosaics repaired, and furnishings replaced as they wore out. These changes altered appearance without disrupting daily movement or routine. Decoration remained secondary to function, reinforcing continuity rather than novelty. Families lived among these gradual changes without altering how they used their space. Household practices also showed long-term consistency. Methods of cooking, cleaning, storing goods, and organizing daily tasks were passed down through observation and repetition. New tools or materials were adopted cautiously, tested alongside older methods. Those that proved useful were retained, while others faded from use. This process allowed innovation without disruption, ensuring that daily life remained stable. Social roles within the home evolved subtly. While expectations surrounding authority, responsibility, and labor shifted over time, daily practice often changed more slowly. Families continued to rely on cooperation and shared routine. Children learned by participation, and adults adapted roles as circumstances required. These adjustments occurred quietly, absorbed into domestic life without formal recognition. Urban growth influenced domestic life gradually. As cities expanded, housing density increased, and apartment living became more common. Even so, domestic routines adapted rather than disappeared. Families living in insulae organized space and time in ways that echoed those of larger houses, using familiar patterns of shared living. The scale of space changed, but the rhythm of life remained recognizable. Rural homes experienced continuity in a different form. Agricultural households maintained long-standing connections between home and land. Daily routines followed seasonal cycles that repeated year after year. Improvements in tools or techniques were integrated into existing practices without altering the fundamental relationship between household and environment. The home remained a stable anchor within a changing landscape. Access to resources influenced the pace of change. Homes with greater wealth adopted improvements earlier, such as enhanced water access, or more elaborate decoration. Modest households adapted more slowly, relying on repair and reuse. Despite these differences, the experience of domestic life remained grounded in repetition and familiarity. Change was experienced as refinement rather than transformation. Religious practice reinforced continuity within the home. Household rituals persisted across generations, linking present practice to ancestral custom. Even as beliefs and interpretations evolved, domestic observance retained familiar forms. Shrines remained in place, offerings continued, and daily rituals were repeated without interruption. These practices anchored domestic life within a broader sense of time. Memory played a central role in maintaining continuity. Homes carried traces of those who had lived there before. Walls bore layers of paint, floors showed wear, and layouts reflected past needs. Family members remembered where objects had always been kept and how spaces had always been used. This accumulated memory shaped behavior, guiding movement and expectation without conscious thought. The experience of time within the Roman home reinforced this sense of continuity. Days followed familiar sequences, seasons returned predictably, and years passed without clear division. Change was measured through small adjustments rather than events. Domestic life unfolded as an ongoing process rather than a series of milestones. This perception allowed households to absorb change without anxiety. Generational succession reinforced stability. Children grew up within established spaces, learning routines that had already been shaped by earlier generations. When they later assumed responsibility for the household, they maintained these patterns while making small adaptations. In this way, domestic life evolved gradually, guided by lived experience rather than planning. Even external influences were absorbed gently. Trade brought new materials, customs introduced new habits, and regional variation shaped local practice. These influences entered the home slowly, filtered through existing routines. The home did not resist change, but it shaped how change was experienced, ensuring that new elements fitted within familiar patterns. Domestic continuity supported social stability. The home provided a reliable environment where individuals understood their roles and expectations. This stability allowed people to engage with broader society while remaining grounded in routine. The predictability of domestic life offered reassurance within a complex and changing world. Over time, Roman homes accumulated layers of use and adaptation. They bore the marks of daily life rather than deliberate design. Repairs, additions, and refinements reflected practical need. Through these layers, the home remained a place of continuity, shaped by the steady presence of those who lived within it. In this way, the typical Roman home existed not as a fixed form, but as a living environment. It changed slowly, guided by habit and necessity. Daily life continued through repetition, adjustment, and shared understanding. The home supported this process by remaining familiar even as details shifted. Through long continuity and gradual adaptation, Roman domestic life maintained its essential character. Homes remained places of shared routine, steady work, quiet leisure, and social connection. Change occurred, but it did so gently, woven into daily life without interruption. Within these enduring spaces, Roman households lived in ways shaped by time, tradition, and the quiet persistence of familiar patterns.